Alrighty. So, first and foremost, I have returned from my 1,700 miles away from home journey. Uh, North Dakota bound, back in the southern slumps, beautiful slumps of southern Texas. As south gets, the Rio Grande Valley, McAllen, Texas, I guess, what most would be more familiar with. But this video is going to be about culture and an experience I had while over there in North Dakota. Well, on my trip back from North Dakota, I took the bus like a raggedy ass motherfucker. And that was an experience I had in Wyoming. And like 4 or 5 days ago, I guess. My brain is like so scattered right now. I got home a couple hours ago, and my brain is still adjusting to the fact that I'm back where my soul and my heart belongs. But anyway, something interesting happened, and while it's still fresh in my mind, I kind of just want to flesh these thoughts out. And long story short, so I'm in Wyoming. Our bus makes a stop there. There's like a 2-hour waiting period before the transfer happens, and you get on another bus and blah blah blah. So so from North Dakota to Texas, there's like 5 different transfers, bus transfers, whatever. And one of the states that we happened to transfer in was Wyoming, right? And I'm outside the bus station. It's like 2 in the morning, and I'm just observing the land, the lay of the land. I've never been in Wyoming before. Wyoming. And save this for later. And while I'm observing, the streets and just seeing if there's anything around, whatever, restaurant or a 24-hour diner or whatever, and there wasn't, but this old white lady that was on the bus, and she's just there sitting she's like distancing herself from all the passengers or whatever. And she's just sitting there having a cigarette, and I'm having a cigarette, and I'm just observing the lay of the land. I'm walking, and I'm just checking it out. I'm like, what the fuck? Make sure I don't get stabbed by a crackhead or something. And she starts laughing. And she's like, you don't have to do that here. You don't have to look over your shoulders. And she's just laughing. And I'm like, well, man, I'm just, I'm not from here. I don't really know the culture of Wyoming or whatever. And she's just like, that's not true. People here are asleep right now. It's 2 a.m. There's nobody here. You don't have to do that. And I'm like, well, I'm from South Texas. You got to look over your shoulder. You can't just assume no one's gonna swing by and try to take your lunch money. I didn't say it like that, but I'm just talking to her, right? And she's like, that's not true. That's not. No. She was like real adamant that like I'm insane or something. And I'm just like, well, I'm from South Texas, it's just it's a different stigma, it's a different vibe. Not every place in Texas is the same. I mean, Texas is fucking huge, and I was just trying to explain to her that it's like where I'm from, you just gotta kind of be on your heels and see if anyone's trying to steal your lunch money. And she's like, that's not you. That's not who you are. And I was just like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm from South Texas. Like, that's just the way it is over there. And she's just really adamant. She's just like, no, that's not who you are. She's like, and then she said something that kind of caught my attention when she said, you don't even speak Spanish. And my retort was, see? Yo sí hablo español, lo hablo bien también, lo entiendo a toda madre, sí hablo español. And I talk English too. She just looks at me like, with her eyes of like, and she's like, what's your last name? And I'm like, Olive, but in Spanish. And she was just, she seemed a bit racist because every time we were on the bus, I would try to like just be like, hi. And she would just kind of look at me like, who's this brown motherfucker in my state of Wyoming? He doesn't belong here. It's because of him that the American dream is in shambles. Go back to where you belong. You have more melanin in your skin than I do, therefore you don't belong here. I know more than you. I'm 65 years old. I've seen it all. And I was just trying to explain to her, it's like, it's a different culture in South Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. Just because you're from Texas, it's still a different world if you're... I mean, I can drive 30 minutes and I'll be in Mexico. If you live in El Paso, that's a different culture. If you're from San Antonio, that's a different culture. If you're from Amarillo, Texas, that's a different culture. If you're from Houston, Texas, it's a different culture. If you're from Donna, Texas, it's another world. And she couldn't like accept it. She couldn't accept that. She's like, no, that's wrong. That's not true. That's not who you are. And I was just trying to get that through her head that you can be from the same state, but just because you can be from Lubbock, Texas, you can be from Donna, Texas, you can be from McAllen, Texas. There's still different worlds within that same state. And I told her, I was like, man, where I'm from, the Mexican border's just right there. Like, you're as south gets in South Texas. And the Mexican border's just right there. So that creates a stigma. It creates its own world, its own universe. Because there's two different countries. I was telling her, it's two different countries. It's Mexico and it's the United States of America. And they're separated by a river. And I was wearing a shirt, one of my shirts from the job that I worked at before, the Riverside restaurant, Riverside Walk, Riverside Bar, whatever, Riverside. And I was like, that's where I work. You can literally see the river right there that separates Mexico from the United States of America. And that in itself creates its own culture. And she just wasn't having it. She's like, no, that's not true. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. And it was just, I was, not that I felt sorry for her. I mean, she's lived her life, but I guess what I found somewhat depressing is that there was no changing her mind. Her mind was already made up because of her culture, her upbringing, and the things that she had seen in her life. So she was convinced that I was just a lunatic idiot, paranoid, schizophrenoid retard, because I was just looking over my shoulders and just like observing the lay of the land. I've never been in that fucking state. And in her mind, it was just like, no, it's the same everywhere. It's just all in your head. You're delusional. You're stupid. Because it's the same everywhere. It doesn't have to be like that, because where I'm from here in Wyoming, everyone's asleep right now, and everyone's going to wake up at 8 in the morning and they're going to go to work because they're all good people and they're incapable of anything monstrous or heinous or insane. But I don't know if pity is the right word. I don't think it would be pity. I mean, but at the end of the day, what I took away from that conversation with her was that that's what you, as a human being, anybody on this fucking planet, That's the last thing you want to do, is to have your mind made up and be convinced that your reality is the ultimate reality. And anyone else trying to intercede or cross your reality and tell you, no, well, it's true because this A, B, C, D, this, and that. I've lived it. I've lived it for 30 plus fucking years. I'm not just saying it to talk out of my ass. I've seen it my entire fucking life. I didn't just Google it. I didn't ask a fucking AI algorithm about my opinions, because my opinions are rooted in the reality that I've observed for my entire fucking life. And she wouldn't have it. She wouldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. She can't accept it, because then that crumbles and pulverizes her reality. And ultimately, the point of this whole video is never be stubborn and convince yourself that your truth is the ultimate truth. Because once you do that, then you're just frozen in time. You can't learn anymore. You can't see the world through any different perspective, because you're convinced that your perspective is the only perspective. And that in itself is the ultimate sign of bigotry. 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 You can be a big old tree, but don't be rooted in bigotry. You can be a giant fucking big old tree creating oxygen for everyone else to breathe. But please, don't be rooted in bigotry.